Grandad cutting some shapes.
I would like to see a grandad cutting some shapes. Come on. Are you ever too old to go out clubbing? I'll hear from the Glasgow nightclub that has launched an overs night for a more mature clientele. Also on the programme.
My wife likes to eat outside. She loses her mind. We go to a restaurant, they have tables outside. They got tables outside? What do you think? Should we grab one of these?
If you've been enjoying the recent warm weather, maybe you've been partaking in some alfresco dining, from barbecues to picnics. Why does food seem to taste better when we eat it outside? And in a couple of minutes, investigative journalist Miles Bonner tells us about his latest podcast, which delves into a conspiracy theory that shook the Scottish legal establishment to its core. All that and more coming up on Mornings with Laura McGee.
All the conversations that matter.
Mornings on BBC Radio Scotland.
To the love I'm
Where in my heart. You are listening to Mornings with Laura McGee on BBC Radio Scotland this morning. A warm welcome to you if you're just joining us. Where have you been the last hour? Don't worry, I won't take it too personally. You're here now, that's the main thing. Now, if you're like me and you love a true crime podcast, there's one out today from BBC Radio Scotland and BBC Sounds, which I am telling you now will have you hooked.
It was called the Magic Circle because it made prosecutions disappear.
The Magic Circle was basically barroom gossip that grew and grew and grew.
So, what was the Magic Circle and who on earth was Shiny Bob? Well, joining me now to tell us more about this podcast is journalist and producer Miles Bonner. Hello, Miles. Thanks for being here. As we were just talking about before we came on air, I have listened to the first episode of this and it is fascinating, it's bizarre, it's horrifying, it is ridiculously interesting. So first of all, people won't know this story because you yourself say at the start of your podcast that this is something that you didn't necessarily know much about and you found a little bit of a breadcrumb and then just found this story that is like no other. So tell me about the story, how you found it.
Yeah, well, I was going through kind of old clippings in the newsroom, you know, as you do sometimes, and I was looking for the next story that I could work on. And I saw the word Fetisgate, and I thought, well, what's that all about? So, you know, Fetisgate, I instantly thought it's got to be something to do with the school, right, you know? So I went digging and digging, and I found out it was about this police station robbery and a subsequent leak to journalists at Scotland on Sunday. And it was at that point I was like, you know, what's going on here? So anyway, the Fetisgate tied into this thing called the Magic Circle scandal. And that was various cases at the time that turned into a conspiracy theory. And then I realised that there was a case that was going on at the time to do with a QC called John Watt, and it had a direct link to this huge story. So I just kept digging and digging and digging, and then, yeah, this podcast was the result of that. So it was effectively a conspiracy theory that secretly gay judges were perverting the course of justice in Edinburgh.
And the Magic Circle, who was in the Magic Circle? What was the Magic Circle then?
Well, it was a conspiracy theory that there was several judges, high-profile legal figures who were effectively corrupting the judicial system, you know, making people get off with crimes, you know, for the fact that they were gay, and they were trying to protect, you know, other secretly gay men. And the whole thing was, you know, found out to be made up, and you can't imagine something like this actually growing arms and legs, but in the 90s it very much did. It was headline news for, you know, years.
Yeah. Why do you think this story will be of interest to people who are listening now that didn't know this story? Why will it get people sitting up and listening? Because it's of a time that I'm from Edinburgh, so I could recognise a lot of the areas that you were talking about in the podcast, but it wasn't obviously a time that I was particularly familiar with, and it was really eye-opening to hear about people's experiences of homosexuality in that time, what people were doing, how there were connections between different areas of journalism and people who were High Court judges and things like that. So why do you think people will be interested in this one?
So I think that the story goes into so many different, you know, angles that I think that there's something really there that would grab most people's interest. I think, you know, like you touched upon there, you get a window into what it was like to be, you know, a gay man in the late 80s and the 90s, and how, you know, that community operated in Edinburgh when it wasn't, you know, necessarily a sexuality that was tolerated, believe it or not. You know, even in the 90s, it's not that long ago. So you get a kind of window into what it was like being gay in Edinburgh. You get a window into what it was like working on police investigations. We have detectives on the record talking about investigating various cases at the time. You get a window into what it's like being an investigative journalist in 90s Edinburgh as well. You know, you get a real inside look into what was happening at the Scotsman back then and what was happening at Scotland on Sunday. And we have effectively a scene in the first episode, actually, where one of the most senior judge in Scotland invites all the editors from all broadcast and print media round to his house to basically say, these rumours are nonsense. You know, let me tell you, I've looked into all these personally, and you know, you don't need to report on this. And in the middle of giving this briefing, all the editors in the room are like, well, we knew nothing of this.
You've told us this.
Yeah, so they all, run out, declaring they're going to clear pages 1 to 4 or whatever. And you just get a window into like how journalism was back then. I mean, a lot of it's the same now, but it's just quite a romanticised view of what was like working in a newspaper as well.
Yeah. Putting a podcast like this together, Miles, what's the process? Because a lot of people, well, some of the characters, if you were to say, are no longer with us, and some of them might not necessarily want to talk about that time. So how difficult is it to make a successful podcast, trying to get those people to talk and tell their story to you?
Yeah, I think it's like any difficult story, really, isn't it? It takes a long time to build people's trust up and make sure that, they trust in you to tell their story accurately. I think, the benefit we had with this one was because some time has passed since this story had kind of played out, even though there are elements of this, which I won't give away the kind of spoilers, but there are elements of it that have impacts, in present day. A lot of people have had time to think, about what they might say in this situation, or enough time's passed where it isn't going to impact their career or whatever. So police, who are normally very difficult to get on the record, and they were quite difficult this time as well, but we eventually got a couple of detectives to speak about that, which wouldn't have necessarily happened if we went and approached them in the 90s. And then also, again, without not getting into too much about what Shiny Bob had done and given away everything, we have a couple of people who have had horrendous experiences. And, the fact that they were brave enough to speak about it, is still quite amazing.
Yeah.
So it was easy in some cases because a long time has passed. In others, it took nearly a year to make. So it took some time to get people on the record.
Well, you want to get it right. And it's actually important to note that you don't want to give too many spoilers to me right now, because people obviously will want to listen to it. But also there's so many legalities that come with this as well, that you can't say specific things, particular things, because legally you're not allowed to. There's anonymity of contributors. I mean, you're having to walk on eggshells here, really, aren't you?
Yeah. I think, the fact that we were dealing with, 4 or 5 cases which were, controversial at the time, it's like walking on eggshells, isn't it, really? But no, I think, we've got a great team making it. We've been kind of lucky enough to have everyone who's involved across the detail from the very beginning, that, walking those legal challenges has been okay so far. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, definitely. In terms of the making of the story, checking sources, speaking to those anonymous people, I know that you'll be well versed in doing that, very experienced in doing that. But because it happened so long ago, did that make it easier for you to get that information? Or did you find, obviously you were working on it for a year, did you find it difficult to get to the real crux of the issue? Did you have any stones left unturned at the end of it all?
Well, actually, and again, it's having good sources, but we did have a lot of luck with getting access to more information than you normally get. We had exclusive access to the entire police investigation into what was called Operation Planet. Hundreds and hundreds of pages. We had all that. We also had the inquiry, because there was an inquiry into the Magic Circle conspiracy theory back then in 1993. That was published. So we had a kind of launching off point of having a wealth of information to work through. And luckily, a lot of the journalists who are at the heart of the story are, established journalists still. Kenny Farquharson, Ron Mackay. These guys had quite a lot of David Johnson. They had a lot of information still to hand, old clippings, old notebooks. So it was quite good in that respect.
When you find a story like this, I mean, for you as an investigative journalist, this must just be the gold dust in terms of you want to do a podcast that's crime, that is getting to the real issues, getting an original story, which can be quite difficult nowadays. You have to try and find one. I mean, it must be great for you to find something like this that on the surface seems like a pretty bizarre thing to happen, and then when you keep delving deeper, as you were saying to me, there's much more to come that you can't quite believe that where you get to by the end of the podcast.
That's it. You can't really ask for anything more for a podcast series, in my opinion. than a multi-layered story. You know, we could have done 12 episodes on this. You know, it was just every time we found someone else or found a new document or spoke to one journalist, we were just constantly, it was a role, we were getting put onto one person after another. And, you know, I'm glad we kept it to 6 and we made it really kind of pacey and bingeable, but we had no problem with, like, you know, getting the content. I think sometimes you're like, is there enough to this story?
Yeah.
There was almost too much at times when it comes to the Magic Circle affair, and what Shiny Bob, the advocate at the centre of it, got up to.
Yeah, and you're not going to tell us because that is the ultimate spoiler of what you got up to. In terms of comparing it with Brewdog, your other podcasts, was it more challenging, less challenging, a different beast entirely?
Yeah, I think it's a different beast, I'd say. Brewdog was a moving story. It was constant, you know, even at the point we were you know, about to publish, things were changing constantly, and you know, it was that was a deep dive into corporate culture and how, you know, a £2 billion company operates, and it was so different to this. You know, it was actually quite a good transition for me to kind of move from doing something that was kind of very much focused on business journalism and then moving on to kind of a more kind of true crimey investigative podcast. But, you know, like Brewdog, there were loads of voices we needed to get on the record, and you know, not quite as many in this as there was needed for Brewdog. But they were kind of similar in that respect. Loads of work needed been done, loads of people that we needed to go on the record to tell the story, but very different in terms of the kind of storytelling, the type of story it was. But what we did actually was learned a lot from making Brewdog, how to kind of tell it with music and pacey scripting, and we've done that for Shiny Bob, the Devil's Advocate. So it's the same style but for a very different story.
Yeah, and just finally, you guys obviously have the formula completely down when it comes to making good podcasts. This one's great. well, award-winning, was it not, the Brewdog, Good Ship Brewdog? But in terms of how many stories do you go through? How long does it take you to choose the story that you're going to commit to and make a podcast out of? Because I'm sure people send you, you know, stories all the time, or just mention something to you that sounds interesting on the face of it, but then when you get into it, you're like, this is maybe only about 20 minutes worth of material here. So how do you choose what stories you go for and what is enough to maintain interest in a podcast for 6 episodes? Yeah,
I think it's probably the part of the job that people don't see much, is that you're actually killing stories constantly. You know, it's just, you have all these ideas, and then, you know, if you've got like a really good editor like we have, you know, she'll know before we do it, that's not a story. Yeah. So I think it's quite good to have people around you that recognise, you know, what works and what doesn't. So I think I've probably knocked down, I wouldn't know what the exact number is, but you get through a few ideas before you land on one, because you've got to commit to it for a long period of time, right? So you've got to really want to do it. So I don't know, 3 or 4, and then you get the one that you want.
Oh, fantastic. Well, this one's a good one. So thank you very much, Miles, for telling us all about it.
Thanks for having me.
If you love a true crime podcast, this is right up your street. It's out today. BBC Radio Scotland, of course, you can find it on BBC Sounds. It's called Shiny Bob. And I should just say before we move on, if you've been affected by any of the issues raised in that discussion, details of organisations offering information and support are available at bbc.co.uk/action line. You're listening to Mornings with Laura McGee.
Up yours! Get out of the way!
Cat say he gonna be here, he should be here.
Open it up.
Shaft's his name. Shaft's his game.
Cat say he gonna be here, and he ain't. It ain't right. Oh.
Wait.
That's some cold shit. Throwing my man Leroy out the window. Just picked my man up and threw him out the goddamn window. But listen, Snow White. Me and you gonna tangle sooner or later.
Why don't you stop playing with yourself, Willie? You ain't gonna do shit.
Shaft's his name. Shaft's his game.
Hey, man, I don't know no Ben Buford.
20.
Oh, that Ben Buford.
We're gonna take it out of your ass, Pip.
I'm looking for a nigger named John Shaft.
Just found him. Whop.
The mob wanted Harlem back. They got Shaft up to here.
All I'm asking you is to let me know what's going on. No names, no places, just what?
Okay, Tom, used up your minute. Get out. Don't tell me, man. Where the gun?
None here. Goddamn. Yeah. Come on, in front of me. You want to play your super heavy black number? I'm going to play mine. We can nail your tail for manslaughter on what we got on you right now.
Right on.
What is this? When you lead that revolution, why they better be standing still? But you don't run with a down no more.
We're done running, man.
Shaft. Hotter than Bond, cooler than Bullet. Rated R. If you want to see Shaft, ask your mama.
Coming up, are you ever too old to go clubbing?
I'm 22 years old. I've only just coming into my prime. I do not want to walk into the club and see my dad's friends, or even my granddad cutting some shapes.
Giving dads and granddads a bad name there. Singer Talia Storm there clearly thinks there should be an age limit, but as a Glasgow club launches an overs night, we'll be hearing from some people who disagree. And
I hate eating outside. I don't think anyone really likes it. Like, you wouldn't like an indoor restaurant with an outdoor theme, would you? Just coming to your table, you guys all set? We're gonna release the live bees.
with more of us enjoying a bit of alfresco dining in the good weather recently. Does food really taste better outside? We'll hear what science has to say on the topic shortly. It is 10:25.
Got something to say? Text 80295. Standard message rates apply.
Mornings on BBC Radio Scotland.
I think about winter when I was with her and the snow was falling down. Warm by the fire, I love being by her when there's no one else around. And I'm falling, oh I'm falling, I'm falling in love with you. I think about summer, my head was swimming, you wrote my name in the sand. I'm falling in love with you.
Listening to Mornings with Laura McGee on BBC Radio Scotland. Good morning to you. Hope you're well on Monday the 5th of June. Where has time gone? I hope you are enjoying yourself this morning. Maybe you are back at work. Maybe you're outside in the garden already. I can't see what it's like outside in this studio, so I have no idea if it's sunny or if it's not yet. But I think it's due to be sunny later on in Glasgow, certainly. But if you're able to enjoy any of the sunshine, please do. And also, if you have been enjoying the sunshine a little bit too much over the past couple of days, later on in the programme, before 12, we're going to be talking about sunburn, how you can avoid getting it, or as I suspect a lot of you out there might already have it, how can you relieve it? How can you treat it? We'll be learning about that later on in the programme. But for now, our savings surgery is back this morning. If you are lucky enough to have any savings, that is. What is your best option at a time we have in rising inflation and interest rates at the highest level in more than 15 years? So is your money best in a pension, in property, or should you put it in the bank? Well, that's where Fergus Muirhead, personal finance expert, comes in. He's got all the answers. So if you've got a question for Fergus, whether it's how to grow your savings, budgeting, or knowing where to invest your money, call 08085 92 95 00 or text 80295. We'll be doing the main surgery just after 11, so plenty of time to get those calls and texts in. But Fergus has joined me now to talk about house prices rebounding again. First of all, good morning, Fergus.
Good morning.
Is it sunny outside? You've just come in.
It's getting there.
Getting there.
It's getting there. It will be by the time I leave, I hope.
That's the main thing. We're going to talk a little bit about mortgages. Sorry, I said house prices, but it is mortgages. So tell me what the situation is with mortgages at the moment. There has been confusion over the past couple of months. There has been disappointment for some people in terms of getting a mortgage and things like that. So what are we at right now? Is it good or bad news for people that are maybe looking to get a new mortgage or maybe think about the mortgage that they've currently got?
It's probably not great news, to be honest. I think the situation we're in right now is that inflation is dropping more slowly than people predicted it would drop, and therefore the kind of gut would be that the best way for the Bank of England to deal with that would be to increase interest rates even further than the 4.5% they're currently at. And unfortunately that means that anyone who's got a mortgage that's not a fixed rate is likely to see an increase in mortgage rates as well as interest rates creep up. And I think if you add to that the fact that there was, and I can't remember the exact detail, but there was a bit of a stamp duty holiday about 2 years ago. Yeah. And when people bought houses 2 years ago, lots of people took out fixed mortgages then. Right. And if they took out a 2-year fixed mortgage 2 years ago, they're coming to an end of a 2-year fixed mortgage, and that could mean pretty dramatic rises in monthly payments for lots of people. So if you add all that together, there's a kind of perfect storm in the mortgage market at the moment. There's lots of people who still need to buy a new house or still need to move house for various reasons, but are likely to find that the rate they're going to have to pay for their mortgage is going to be higher, and therefore the monthly payments are going to be higher, often substantially at the moment.
Right. So how much harder does that make it to get a mortgage right now? Or is it not hard to get it, it's just that you're going to have to perhaps pay significantly more than what you maybe want to?
In some ways it's actually easier for some people to get a mortgage right now, because over the last couple of months we've seen some lenders reintroduce 100% mortgages. So that makes it easier for people who don't have anything in the way of savings to get a loan. And I'm not at this stage talking about the benefits of 100% mortgages, or whether you should or shouldn't borrow 100% of the value of the property you're buying. But the answer to your question of is it more difficult, is probably not much more difficult for some people. But the building societies tests are still a bit harder than they were a few years ago. So the mortgage market has tightened up in that sense, but it's more about the cost of the mortgage. It's more about the fact that every £1,000 that you borrow will cost more in monthly repayments now than it would have done 3 or 4 months ago.
Yeah, and that's not what people want right now when they're contending with the cost
Correct.
of living crisis and everything else that's added on top of that. You mentioned fixed deals there. Rates on 2 and 5 year fixed deals have also risen. So that isn't great news either if you are indeed coming to the end of your fixed rate and you're going to have to remortgage.
Well, for anyone who's going to remortgage now, they will almost certainly be remortgaging at a higher rate than they got 2 years ago. So anyone who's coming to an end of a fixed rate mortgage is going to face higher monthly repayments. So there's little question about that. And that makes it really important that people do their homework and look around the market and make sure that the deal they're getting is the most suitable and the most appropriate deal for their circumstances.
Is it, as you say, good for you to do your own research, or is it better to go to an expert when it comes to these things? Do they just have more information, more knowledge behind them?
My gut would be that the person who's an independent mortgage broker who's got access to the whole market is probably the best person to go to, because if someone's able to access mortgages across a whole range of different companies, then they will give you a wider base than someone who's dealing with one particular company or one particular building society. You can do your own research first. I mean, all of the comparison websites online allow you to go on and look at what deals are on offer, but not every deal that's on offer online is on offer for every individual.
Yeah.
So I think it's quite a good thing to go on and do some initial research. And I think it's good that you do that really early. Don't leave it till the last minute. I mean, we talk about this often when we're talking about all aspects of money advice. People leave things till the last minute. When it comes to mortgages, don't leave it till the last minute. The mortgage that you look for should be one of the first things that you do when you decide you're going to go and look at a new house. You should be getting your mortgage organised really early doors so that you know what's available, you know how much you can borrow, you've got an idea up front as to how much that's going to cost you, and you can start to prepare yourself for what will happen if mortgage rates start to rise after you've moved in.
That's the thing, though. The word mortgage can put fear into people, can't it? Some people bury their head in the sand when it comes to mortgage because you know you're going to have to put out a lot of money. But you're saying that to get the best deal possible, you have to tackle it head on, and it has to be the forefront of your priorities, because it is what you're going to spend a huge amount of money on over the course of your lifetime.
It's the most money you'll ever spend, or it's the most money that the vast majority of us will ever spend on one thing. And yet we buy a house much more quickly than sometimes we buy a pair of shoes or a new suit or something like that. You know, you're going to see a house once, you put in an offer, and there's a whole other topic here about the housing market at the moment. I mean, I'm in the process of moving just now, and it's just so stressful. You know, the housing market is just... moving house, buying a house and selling a house creates so much stress for so many different reasons, and you don't want to add to that stress by leaving the mortgage decisions until the last minute. So get on top of it. You know, you're right about burying your head in the sand. Don't bury your head in the sand. Most of us have got to borrow money to buy a house. It's important that we understand all of the costs involved in that mortgage process. What are the fees involved? What we've got to pay up front? Is a fixed rate better than a variable rate? Why is a fixed rate better than a variable rate? What happens if we've got a variable rate and the market moves? Can there be an advantage? Can we gamble? If we think we're at the peak of the market, is a variable rate better because we think rates are going to fall? And you know, do we want to be tied at a fixed rate that's going to be higher than the variable rate in 6 months' time? There's a whole range of questions that need to be asked, and you need to have the answers to them before you move in.
You're totally right. And the thing is as well, maybe older generations know some of the answers to these things. They're already on the property market, perhaps. They've already got experience of that. But the younger generations, I remember when I bought my first property, well, my only property I've ever had, and I had no idea about what I was doing. I'd never been talked through it with I didn't talk through it with anyone really until I got to a financial expert myself. And you learn there's so much to it, and there's so many important things that you know. So hopefully we'll get into some of them later. And I'm a little bit worried though, Fergus, that if you're stressed out about moving, what hope have we all got? But thank you very much. You'll be back after 11 for your main surgery. So if you've got any money related questions, give Fergus a call 08085 92 95 00 or text 80295. Mornings with Laura McGee. It is 10:37.
Sitting in the morning sun, I'll be sitting when the evening comes, watching the ships roll in, and then I'll watch them roll away again. Yeah, I'm sitting on the dock of the bay, watching the tide roll away. Ooh, I'm just sitting on the dock of the bay, wasting time. I left my home in Georgia, headed for the Frisco Bay, 'cause I've had nothing to live for, and look like nothing's gonna come my way. So I'm just gonna sit on the dock of the bay, watching the tide roll away. Ooh, I'm sitting on the dock of the bay, wasting time. Look like nothing's gonna change, everything still remains the same. I can't do what 10 people tell me to do, so I guess I'll remain the same. Listen, sitting here resting my bones, and this loneliness won't leave me alone. Listen, 2,000 miles I roam just to make this dock my home. Now I'm just gonna sit at the dock of a bay, watching the tide roll away. Ooh, I'm sitting on the dock of a bay, wasting time.
That was, of course, Otis Redding and Sitting on the Dock of the Bay. First released 1968, the year Boeing introduced the first 747 jumbo jets. 2001, A Space Odyssey was big at the box office, and Apollo 8 became the first manned spacecraft to orbit the moon. Goodness me, we've moved on quite a bit since then. You are listening to Mornings with Laura McGee on BBC Radio Scotland. Now, a Glasgow venue has launched an Overs Night for more mature clientele, which begs the question, are you ever too old to go out clubbing? It's the big question. Here to discuss, Paul Banham, Operations Director of the Buff Club, Joe Hemmings, Behavioural Psychologist, and Tonya Macari, broadcaster. Good morning, all of you.
Morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Right, Paul, we'll start with you first. So you are hosting this Overs Night. So tell me a little bit more about the Overs Night. And also, I've got a bone to pick with you. You're saying overs, but how over is over? Because I think I might be an over if this is the case.
I think the answer, Laura, is there's never too old to be an overs is the reality. But obviously when we announced the night and we came up with the name and that, there was a little bit of tongue-in-cheek with regards it. But essentially, it's something that's been sort of happening a little bit within the scene for the last few years, I would sort of say. There's sort of been a few different people that we've worked with over the years, whether that's John Ross and his Hip Replacement Night or Rick with the Songs You Bass. and they've got their own sort of older clientele with their sort of music niche that they've been sort of doing. And this year's 20 years of the Buff Club, and we just felt that there was something maybe missing a wee bit there in terms of post sort of pandemic. We noticed the youngsters were all sort of keen to come back out to the nightclubs, but I think quite a lot of people's habits and routines have changed over the past couple of years. And there was maybe a bit of a hesitation for people who are maybe a little bit older, sort of over 30 or whatever, to come back within the nightclub sector. And so doing the jobs we do, that's part of our remit, is to think about new ways to sort of encourage people to come out and just enjoy their nights and reminisce a little bit about how they maybe used to go out a little bit more when they were in their 20s and younger.
So what makes the Overs night different from your normal night?
I think in some ways there will be no difference. There will obviously be a bit more of music that we were playing sort of 20 years ago and things like that. But the Buff Club itself has been playing, you know, as you were playing Otis Redding there earlier, ranges music from 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, noughties. It's across the decades is the reality of it. So in terms of the music itself, it's more create an environment that people feel comfortable to come in, rather than, you know, I think at times they maybe feel there when, you know, we still do get a range of people that come in late nights. However, it's probably a bit more restricted. Public transport and that isn't exactly the same as it was pre-pandemic. There's various issues with the taxis and that. And ultimately, I think people are maybe looking, especially people who maybe got kids and other commitments, they're looking to maybe get out a little bit early in the evening. So the Overs will be running from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. And it's had such a great response, and it's just been great to sort of see the reaction from people, whether that's online, and the first event's sold out now. So it's been great.
Okay, Tonya, you are a broadcaster.
Wow.
Is this right up your street, Tonya?
Well, I have to say, forget your name being Paul. You're now Saint Paul of the Buff Club. It is a brilliant idea. I am one of the Overs that is never over. I think I came out of the womb clutching a disco ball and wearing a pair of dancing shoes. But seriously, throughout the 80s, that was my vintage. Buster Brown's Manifesto on a Sunday night. I'm from Edinburgh. And the very famous Hoochie Coochie Club. Fantastic. You never, no matter how old you are, you never stop enjoying having a dance. When you hear music, you just want to get up there. And, you know, when you get to my stage of life, you know, most of my dancing is now restricted to weddings, the dreaded office Christmas party or two, and a kitchen disco. Because of the fact that I don't want to go out at midnight. My kids are in their 20s. They come round and have their prees at 10 o'clock with their friends, leave the house at midnight and come back at 5. It's just doesn't fit in with your lifestyle. But I still want to go and dance. I still want to club, but I don't want to be doing it in the middle of the night. So it is a brilliant idea. And the only issue that I have is we need to have it in Edinburgh, we need to have it in Dundee, we need to have it in Perth, we need to have it everywhere. It is a brilliant idea.
Tonya, do you go out clubbing just now? Would you go to... No, so you wouldn't. And is that because you feel like you don't fit in there, or is it just because of the timing it doesn't fit in with your life?
Well, it's mainly the timing. To be honest, I did go to a party a couple of weeks ago where there was music till 1. Got to bed at 2:30. The whole of the Saturday was like a zombie. The whole of the Sunday was still in recovery. To be honest, when you get older, you know, you can't stay out late. My kids bounce back. But for me, it's more as well, you know, I like... It's partly the music as well, okay? So I don't want to go to a club that my kids are going to when you don't recognise you don't recognise any of the music. You want to go there, as Paul said, where you've got music from your era that you recognise, whether it's the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the noughties, whatever, because there is nothing better than when you hear a song and that rush to the dance floor. And as I said, for, you know, if you're not going out clubbing, going to a club that's opening at 11, the only times you get to do that is at friends' parties or weddings, and it's not enough. And I think absolutely have them on a Thursday night, Friday night, 7 till 11:30, great. I can be tucked up in bed, you know, so that my routine isn't thrown out of it, and have a good time. It's a brilliant idea.
In terms of what Paul was saying there, which was that after COVID, they noticed that although younger people were quite keen to get back out, get back to nightclubs again, that they noticed that there was a drop-off in terms of older generations. Do you think that's something that you can see, that people maybe who are a bit older have got used to staying in a little bit more at night rather than going out at night?
You know, it's so interesting because it's about habit, isn't it? But to be honest, I think this is a sort of impression that just because you're over 30, you don't stop doing the things that you love doing. And, you know, I think young people got into the habit of not going out as well. I think there's been a bit of that, but it's certainly coming back. You know, as I say, I was at this party 10 days ago. We were fighting to get there. A lot of my friends now are organising parties to celebrate, you know, anniversaries, birthdays, whatever. And I think people are going out more, but you do need to encourage people, and certainly for anybody, not just, you know, somebody of my vintage, but if you've got a job or you've got kids, you know, people in their young 30s who've got young kids, you can't be going out till 5 a.m. because it just doesn't fit in with your schedule. So it's a mix. It's encouraging people to come out and re-socialise. But personally, I think we're past that now. I think COVID seems like a long, long time ago, and we need more things to encourage us to get out, have fun, and it's great exercise as well.
Well, that's what I was about to say. What is it about going to nightclubs that attracts you? Is it the music? Is it the dancing? Is it the socialising? What is it?
Well, it's a mix, isn't it? Because, I mean, kitchen disco, who doesn't, you know, have a bit of a dance when you hear a great song on the radio? But it's the communal thing, that wonderful experience of, you know, a DJ putting on a song and everybody just rushes to the dance floor. And you have this communal experience of enjoying, letting yourself go, having fun with your friends, having a laugh. It makes you feel good. I don't know what it is about dancing that just makes you feel happy, but it does. And if you're doing it with your friends, what could be better?
Well,
it's a great experience.
We can find out from somebody who knows what it is about dancing that makes us feel better. Jo Hemmings, behavioural psychologist, let's bring you in on this. So why is it that people enjoy dancing? What is it giving us? Endorphins, I imagine, being out, dancing, listening to music, is that what's so good about it for some people?
Yes, it releases a lot of endorphins. So that's that feel-good hormone when you're just having a great time. I also think there's a nostalgia element in all this. To be able to dance the music that you danced to a few years ago, whether that's 10 years ago, 20 years ago, whatever, the yearning for nostalgia and how good it is for our well-being is another factor. And I think the fact you can dance without fear of being judged as well. That's the whole point, like the kitchen disco that Tonya was saying. You can dance around that and no one is going to look at you and think you're dad or mum dancing. And I think when you're with your own age group, you can just let yourself go. So those endorphins are literally amplified because you don't have any of that sense that anybody's looking at you because you don't get the music or because you're not dancing in the right way or whatever it may be. So that whole feeling of it's just a massive chill out, and you get exercise and you get fun. There is nothing not going for this at all psychologically.
Jo, just to finish up, I'll give you the last say. Are you ever too old to have a boogie?
Absolutely not. We put it as finely as that. Definitely no.
Great stuff. Thank you all three of you for joining me this morning. Paul Banham, Operations Director of the Buff Club, Jo Hemmings, behavioural psychologist, and Tonya Macari, broadcaster, who I suspect you'll be seeing in nightclubs all over Edinburgh very soon, boogieing away. Thank you to all of you. You're listening to Mornings with Laura McGee.
This dude is bad, and he ain't just fly. He's super fly, yeah, super fly. When it comes to women, they come to him, but it's still not enough. He wants a big score, $1 million in cash, yeah, the big one.
This is a chance, and I want to take it now, before I have to kill somebody. Before somebody ices me.
What kind of money are we talking about?
Not much.
I want his ass out working.
quit now, then I took all this chance for nothing. And I go back to being nothing. Working some jive job for chump change day after day. Look, if that's all I'm supposed to do, then they're gonna have to kill me, because that ain't enough.
Ain't I clean, bad machine, super cool, super mean, dealing good for the man, super fly. Here I stand, secret stash, heavy bread, baddest bitches in the bed. I'm your pusher man.
Can a Superfly Harlem dude beat the system? He's got a plan to stick it to the man. He's super hood, super high, super dude, super fly.
Still to come, experts are warning that we could be facing an insomnia epidemic among young people. We'll find out why and what you can do to help your kids sleep better. And our resident personal finance expert, Fergus Muirhead, will be here shortly with his savings surgery. If there's anything you'd like to know about looking after or growing your money, he's the man to ask. So get your questions in now. A reminder of those numbers: 08085 92 95 00 is the number to call me on, and text me on 80295.
Get in touch with BBC Radio Scotland.
You can call our free phone number on 08085 92 95 00. Text 80295. Standard message rates apply.
This is BBC Radio Scotland.
I wonder if you have been soaking up the sun over the past couple of days. That's what many people have been doing here in Scotland, haven't they? And that was Sheryl Crow and Soak Up the Sun. Well, maybe if you have been enjoying some of the great weather over the past wee while and with the sun shining, you might have been taking the opportunity to enjoy a bit of alfresco dining. So, from barbecues to picnics, why does food seem to taste better when we eat it outside? Well, here to discuss this morning, Stuart Farrimond, food scientist, and Rory Crawford, TV presenter and dad of two. Good morning, Stuart. Good morning, Rory.
Morning.
Good morning. Right. Stuart, should we start with you? So, is it in fact true that food tastes better outdoors, or is it just because we are happier because it's sunny outside?
Yes and no. So, yes, yeah, absolutely. So, you've got to bear in mind that food and flavour is a thing. Food and flavour is creation in our mind, in our brain, and so everything around us creates this illusion of flavour. So if we're in a nice environment, if it's sunny outside, if we're with friends, if we can hear the barbecue crackling in the background, that plays into the flavour of food, and that enhances the enjoyment of the food that we experience. So yes, absolutely, there is good evidence to show that.
Is there any food is there certain foods that taste better outdoors than others?
Not particularly, though there was some research done in 2022 that found that people prefer to eat fruit and vegetables when they're outside. So perhaps that is because, being out with nature, that enhances the flavour of natural ingredients of fruit and vegetables. So there is some evidence for that. So salads, fruit and vegetables, they taste better when we're outdoors.
Okay. Rory, let me bring you in. Have you been eating outdoors recently? You've got two children. Have you been having barbecues and picnics in the sunny weather?
Yes, we've only had one barbecue actually so far, but we've done plenty of outdoor eating. And I find as a parent the biggest advantage to eating outside is that any food that falls on the floor is
yes.
your gift to nature as well, and you don't have to tidy it up.
Yes, it's just a little bit easier for you. You don't have to clean plates or anything like that. What do you think that food tastes better? Are you a big advocate of eating outdoors? Would you try and do it as much as possible, or is it just a one-off special occasion thing for you and your family?
Oh, totally. I mean, I love it. I love being outside, love nature anyway, so there's something special. And I think being Scottish as well, something you said at the start of the piece there is exactly that. Like, we don't get enough sunny days, so when it is nice, everyone's mood is up there and elevated and you're outside and it feels good. Yeah. But yeah, there's something just really lovely about it. If you think about your childhood memories and stuff, many people have got those associated with having food outside, or when I was wee, the biggest excitement was all about having a barbecue. So there's something really nice about it. Yeah, it's special.
What are the barbecue foods of choice?
Well, I'm like perhaps the least popular person at a barbecue because I don't actually eat meat. So,
okay.
I'm one of those. But what's amazing now, even in the past 10 years, is that all the sort of vegan sausages and burgers and all that, it's easy to replace. But even then, like, some of the tastiest food in a barbecue, I've got to say, is vegetables. Like things like aubergines and peppers and corn just take on new life when it's put on a flame. So I love all of that, and what was said there about fruit and vegetables, like getting a nice salad on the side of it as well, and having it outside is just absolutely magnificent. And in fact, it doesn't have to be sunny. I think one of the best things you can do with a glass of whiskey is stand outside and have it in the rain, in winter. I remember during lockdown, part 2, 3, 4, whatever part it was, when we were in the middle of winter and it was horrible outside, and you're only allowed to see people outdoors, having somebody over sat in a fire in our garden 2 meters apart, but we sat having a whiskey outside, and there was something special about that. So I think whiskey in particular was best enjoyed outside.
Yeah, a lot of people were enjoying some alfresco dining and alfresco drinking during the COVID pandemic, weren't they? Thank you so much, gentlemen. That was Rory Crawford and Stuart Farrimond joining us, talking about alfresco dining. Maybe you're having some alfresco food later on today. Well, if you are, enjoy yourself. Thank you very much for listening. It's Mornings with Laura McGee on BBC Radio Scotland. Stay with me. I'm here until 12. You're listening to BBC Radio Scotland with me, Laura McGee. Still to come before midday, personal finance expert Fergus Muirhead will be throwing open the doors to his savings surgery very shortly, but it's certainly not too late to get your questions in for him. So call 08085 92 95 00 or text 80295 now. Also,
and we've seen over the last couple of years with the pandemic a greatly increased reliance on social media to meet the social needs of teens. And we've seen an epidemic of sleep problems.
With warnings of an insomnia epidemic among children and young people, we'll find out what you can do to help your kids adopt good sleeping habits early in life. I think I'll take a couple of those pieces of help as well. And on our regular Tech Talk feature, Carrie Marshall will be taking a look at how Pride Month is being celebrated by your favourite tech brands.
All the conversations that matter.
Mornings on BBC Radio Scotland.
It's been a million days and a million nights. Oh, I still remember how your love changed my life. It's not enough words in my vocabulary to express how I feel. And I still pinch myself just to see if it's real. Said a man ain't supposed to cry, but I'll put my pride aside. Let these tears fall from my eyes. I'm so happy you're still in my life. You got me like, oh, how I love you. And that will never change. Forever and ever and ever and always.
morning, everyone. Mornings with Laura McGee today on BBC Radio Scotland. Thank you very much for joining us. It is now time for our savings surgery, and it is your chance to ask our expert if you have a finance question, whatever it might relate to, how to start saving, where to invest the savings you have, retirement, budgeting or pension contributions. Call Fergus now. A reminder of those numbers: 08085 92 95 00, or indeed you can text us 80295. There is still plenty of time for you to get in touch with us this morning. Fergus is indeed back. Thank you very much, Fergus, for coming back. And we will start with a text, shall we? So John has texted in and has said, I probably won't see my grandchild's 21st birthday. I cannot make an ISA for him. What's the best way of investing a bit of money for him for his birthday?
Lots of different options here for John if he doesn't think he's going to be around. You can give as much money to anybody you want to give them whenever you want to give them it. But what John has to be aware of, and what anyone has to be aware of when giving money to anybody else, is what is the tax position of that money that you're giving away. And there may well be an inheritance tax consideration, for example, depending on when John gives the money away and how long he lives for after he gives that money away. There are savings options. If John's grandchild has an ISA, has a junior ISA open already, then there's nothing to stop John contributing to that ISA for his grandchild or grandchildren. And that money can then be accumulated until the grandchild is 18. He could put money in trust. He could just keep money in his own savings accounts and just will it to his grandchildren. So there are lots of different options, depending on when he wants his grandchildren to benefit from the money that he wants to give and how much control he wants them to have at this stage. John didn't say in his text how old his grandchild is at the moment. So, his grandchild may not be at an age at the moment where John just wants to give him cash in case he goes and spends it. So, it looks as if 21 is the age that John wants his grandchild to be able to benefit from that money. So it's a case of looking at the different options and, in terms of, does he want to make an outright gift now? Does he want to keep money in his own name that he can then put in an account that he could open up an account, for example, and he could put a certain amount of money into that account. And then in his will, he could say that he wants the money that's in that particular account to go to his grandchild, and he may well have more grandchildren. I don't know his situation by the time that he passes away. So there are lots of different options, but part of it is down to how much control John wants to continue to have over that money, or whether he's happy to give his grandchild control over how that money's invested from now until he gets to 21.
It's an interesting question, actually, and I wonder if you have the answer to this, that if you are thinking that you want to give money to younger generations before you pass away, which might be a number of years away, but is it better to put them in bank accounts where they're in charge of it, it's their name on the bank account, or is it better to have it, as you were saying, your own bank account, but in your will you then say it's for them? Like, in terms of money that you might lose as a part of that, is it the same money they would get either way, or would you lose some of that money because of inheritance tax and things like that? Well,
it depends on the tax situation between now and the time that you pass away, but it also depends on how much control you want to continue to have over that money. Okay. So, for example, if I've got a grandchild who is 16 today, and I want to give him £10,000, I might not want him to have that £10,000 today
Probably
when he's 16. I might want to say he can have it when he's 21. Yeah. Therefore, I might want to invest the £10,000 wrapped up in some sort of trust that he can't touch until he's 21, and perhaps that his parents have control over until such times as my grandchild is 21. If my grandchild is 18 now and needs the money now, then I might just say, there's £10,000. You can have it now because I know that's going to. And there's a big debate about that going on just now. Should parents who have money now be giving it to their children when their children need it, rather than keeping it in accounts in their own names until they die, and then by the time that their kids need it, they've bought their own houses and they've got their own kids and they don't need it because they've got their own cash. So it's a debate that's got no right or wrong answer. But again, as we said earlier when we were talking about mortgages, it's every time you look at something to do with money, the most important thing that you can do is do your research and make sure that you understand the implications of what it is that you're going to do. So if you give money to your grandchild today, what is the tax implication of gifting that money away? Is there likely to be an inheritance tax implication? Is there likely to be a tax that's payable by you or by your grandchild? What are the investment implications? What else could you have done? Make sure you do your research before you just say, here's some money.
Of course. Thank you very much for that. Let's go to a caller, shall we? Stephen has phoned in from Edinburgh. Good morning, Stephen.
Good morning.
Good morning. Right, what's your question this morning, Stephen?
Good morning, Fergus.
Good morning.
Thanks for taking my call. Fergus, I have a stocks and shares ISA with a reputable company which was put in when I got my lump sum when I retired some 12 years ago. It's been doing reasonably well. In the last year, it's lost £1,500. I also have a small bond with them which has lost £500. What do I do? Leave, move the money, or is there anything I haven't thought about?
That's a really good question, Stephen, and we could spend the rest of the day answering that one. Can I ask you, do you mind telling me how much money you have invested to have lost £1,500? What does £1,500 represent as a percentage of your total investment?
Last year, the value was 35,400. This year, it's 34,200. That's the ISA.
Okay, so you've lost about £1,300 on a balance of 35,000.
Yeah.
Do you need the money?
No, it's not done anything, and I haven't added to it since I retired. So it's my Wayne's inheritance.
Yeah. Without mentioning names, why did you choose? You said that the ISA's with a very reputable company. What kind of research did you do to choose that company in the first place?
Financial advisor from my bank at the time when I retired.
Okay. And had you used that company before, or you used that bank for years?
Yes. For insurance purposes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the other question that's important is, when you say minimum risk, what do you mean by minimum risk?
You know how there are various levels of risk for the ISA. This is the sort of minimum level of risk.
Okay. The reason I'm asking these questions is just to kind of find out what kind of research you did before you opened that because I was saying to Laura, it's been a kind of theme of the stuff we've been discussing this morning, which is that, if you're going to invest any money, if you're going to do anything with your money, it's important to do your research first. And you've done that in the sense that you've used a financial advisor from a bank that you've been using for years, and therefore you trust them. And you've obviously looked at the different levels of risk that are associated with an ISA investment, and you've chosen the one that was most appropriate for you. On that basis, and assuming you're still happy with the company that you're using and you don't need the money, my gut would be that you just leave it where it is. With the stocks and shares ISA, I think the classic warning that we're all given before we invest money is that the value of your investments can rise as well as fall, or fall as well as rise, or in some markets fall as well as plummet. And I think that the only thing you would be doing by cashing in that ISA today and transferring it to a cash ISA would be to consolidate that loss that you've made. Now, I don't know how much the ISA has varied in value between the amount that you invested 12 years ago and the 3.5 that you've got at the moment. But if we only look at the last year, if you cash that money in now, you've lost £1,300 in the last 12 months. And if you put that in a cash ISA, you won't get anything like that back in the next 12 months from a cash return. So all you're doing is consolidating a loss. So if you don't actually need the cash just now, and it's for the benefit of your grandchildren or your children, and you think you've still got a long time to go on this earth, then leave it where it is, let the markets recover, let the markets do what they do, and don't worry about it. That would be my gut.
Okay, that's great.
Does that make sense?
Yes, absolute sense. I mean, I just didn't know what to do, and I'm not a financial expert, and relied on advice when banks could give advice, but they can't give advice now. And I phoned the company, and they say, we can't give you advice, but here are your options. And I thought, God,
I think
Like-
if you did need the money now, then perhaps we would have a slightly different conversation. And that's the reason that it's always important when you're investing money in something like a stocks and shares ISA that you keep enough cash somewhere else. So that if you do need access to cash quickly, you've got access to cash without having to dip into investments at a time when the market has fallen. So you always want to have some sort of, it's probably best called an emergency fund or a contingency fund. If you work out what that is the most you're likely to need in the short term, if something happens to your car or your roof or you need house repairs, what's the most amount of cash that you'll need access to? And this is applicable to anyone who's thinking about investing money, not just you, Stephen. If you're about to invest money in the same way that Stephen has invested it, then it's important that you don't invest 100% of the cash that you've got. You keep a little bit just so that you can access it quickly if you need it, and the rest of it you put away, and you're happy in the knowledge that if the market falls a little bit, like it has done in this case, you can afford to wait until the market recovers before you access your cash, and you don't need to dip in and take the money out loss, which is why Stephen's asking that question in the first place. So really important, if you're investing money in stocks and shares, keep a little bit aside, and that little bit should be enough as an emergency fund that you can access if you need to get money quickly.
Is that all right, Stephen? Is that all good for you?
Yes, that's great, Ferguson. The $50,000 question, when will the market recover?
Well, you know what, Stephen, if I had the answer to that, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to Laura. I'd be somewhere else enjoying my ill-gotten gains.
Yeah, exactly. He'd be sunning himself on a yacht somewhere.
Absolutely.
Thanks very much.
Thank you for your advice, Ferguson.
No problem.
Thanks. Thanks, Stephen. Fergus is going to be with us for a little bit longer. He'll be answering more of your questions this morning, just after this.
It kind of feels like the next.
Hide your mamas. Big brother is coming. And he's coming on strong. Isaac Hayes, the big brother of soul, is making a new kind of music. And it's mean jive.
If anybody asks you what happened, tell them you've been hit by a truck. Mack Truck Turner.
When he's hottest, he's the coolest.
You don't look like cops, but you smell like trouble.
Trouble? Me? If I was, I wouldn't stand a chance with you, Mama.
When he's baddest,
What do you want for breakfast?
he's the best.
What do you think?
Every gun brother and sister is out to make the big hit.
I want that bastard truck Turner, and I want him dead.
But he's out to get before he's got.
Gentlemen, this is my family. These all prime cut bitches. $238,000 worth of dynamite is Fort Knox in pennies. Candy did $17,000 last year. That's Turnpike. She did $26,500. She's called Turnpike because you gotta pay to get on and pay to get off. And where's my baby? That's Taffy. This bitch grows $37,500 working part-time. Her clients call her Colonel Sanders because she's finger-licking good.
Oh, Mama.
The man who kills him gets my broads, and I'll run the stable.
Isaac Hayes as a skip tracer, a modern-day bounty hunter, making a healthy living by making living unhealthy for cats who skip bail.
Now look, they tried to get me through you, and they'll try again.
Well, why can't we just leave town, Truck?
Not until I get them all.
Truck, they're gonna kill you.
They're gonna have to do just that. Because they owe me. I'm going to collect. What do you want, man? The sky is about to open up in your head. Better retire. Take a vacation. Lay on a beach for about 90 years. You got 10 seconds.
To find the rooster, you check the hens.
All you bitches out of business! Pack your shit!
If you have to bust every hen house in town.
Touch your ass, bitch. Your ass is leaving.
What are you doing?
Cut that act, bitch.
I don't understand, Chuck Turner. What the hell is... Get out of my closet.
Your shit backfired. I killed Blues, Ed.
Listen to me. You and me could... Chuck Turner, anything you want, you can have it.
Listen, Korea, come on, hit it. I'm not ready. Are you ready? Well, hold on, Jack, because we moving. Well, hit it, Jack. Come on, we go. We go.
When he gets it on, the action takes off. Isaac Hayes, the magic name of music. With a standing audience of millions of fans around the world, you couldn't count. Winner of the Academy Award for his music in Shaft, and scoring again in this one. Yaphet Kotto, the big man of the big grosser, Live and Let Die, the cash transaction. And you got them both in Truck Turner. Coming this summer from American International Pictures.
Still to come this morning.
And we've seen over the last couple of years with the pandemic a greatly increased reliance on social media to meet the social needs of teens. And we've seen an epidemic of sleep problems.
Experts are warning that we could be facing an insomnia epidemic among young people. We'll find out why and what you can do to help your kids sleep better. And on our regular Tech Talk feature, Carrie Marshall will be with us taking a look at how Pride Month is being celebrated by your favourite tech brands.
Get in touch with BBC Radio Scotland.
You can call our free phone number on 08085 92 95 00. Text 80295. Standard message rates apply.
This is BBC Radio Scotland.
Yes, our personal finance expert. What are your questions? Maybe it's how to start saving, where to invest the savings you have, retirement budgeting, pension contributions. Let us know this morning. We've had another text from JC. JC says, morning, I want to invest some of my pension. Could Fergus advise me if I'm going to put it away for 2 years, maybe what I'm going to do with that?
Yeah, I think a lot of what we said to Stephen there applies to JC as well. That that he's got a lump sum of money that he wants to invest for a period of 2 years. I think one question is 2 years long enough to invest in, 2 years long enough to wait for the stock market to recover, or is that too short a period of time? And a lot of that is down to how much risk JC feels that he wants to take with his money. If he's kind of risk averse, then he might want to leave it in cash somewhere, look for the highest rate bank or building society account that you can find, possibly within an ISA. We've talked about interest rates maybe still going up. If interest rates go up, then that's good news for savers generally. So it might well be that he's got a chunk of money that he can put into an ISA in the highest rate account he can find, leave it for 2 years and then just take the interest back from that. If he's unlikely to need it after 2 years and there's a chance that he might want to save it for longer than that, then it might well be that a stocks and shares ISA would be a better bet for long-term growth than a cash ISA. But it's back down to that risk that he's prepared to take, looking at the market, getting onto some comparison websites, looking to see what accounts are paying the highest rate of interest at any time, and just make sure he does that research first.
And that is the way to do it, isn't it? Because people can be nervous about having a lump sum of money and just sticking it into one account that they maybe can't get access to for however long. So what you're quite right in saying is that if you have that pocket of money that's for the emergency funds, and then you can concentrate on those longer term savings elsewhere. Mrs. Harris, just our last text here. Mrs. Harris has said, savings, is it worth to put them in a private pension or somewhere else? It's £6,000 and Mrs. Harris is 59 years old.
Really difficult question to answer without any more information
Right, okay.
on Mrs. Harris's situation. The big advantage of putting money into a pension is that you generally get tax relief on the money that you put into a pension. So if she's got £6,000 to invest in a pension, then the £6,000 would have tax deducted from it, or basic rate tax added back onto it, depending on her personal situation. If she's a high rate taxpayer, she might end up with £10,000 invested and a net cost of £6,000 or something like that. So a pension can be very tax advantageous from a tax point of view, but if she's 59 and she's going to retire next year and wants to take the money back out, then she might end up paying tax when she takes it out next year, and in which case the tax benefits might be marginal. But there are certainly advantages in talking to our pension provider at the moment and just finding out whether she's got the ability to pay that into a pension, how much it would cost her to do that, and what the tax breaks would be.
Brilliant. Fergus, thank you so much for being with us this morning. That's Fergus Muirhead, our personal finance expert. Hopefully you managed to get your question in there. You're listening to Mornings with Laura McGee on BBC Radio Scotland. Straight after me, however. BBC Radio Scotland straight after me, however, is Lunchtime Live with Graham Stewart and Lucy White. Graham is here to tell us all about what you have in store for our audience.
Yeah, hi Laura. It's decision day for the bottle deposit return scheme. The Scottish Government have set a deadline for the UK Government to allow glass to be included in the scheme. We'll explain what's all behind that and bring you the latest. Prince Harry is preparing to become the first senior member of the royal family to give evidence in court since the 1890s. It's an action against Mirror Group newspapers. He won't personally appear in court today, probably looking like tomorrow now, but we'll look into what the case is all about. And Kylie is back at the top of the charts this week with the single Padam Padam. Not many 55-year-old artists make it to the playlists of Radio 1 and Capital, so we'll be looking at the secret behind her enduring appeal. I say secret, just a good song, basically.
I mean, sometimes that's all it takes, Graham, isn't it?
Yeah. So we're on air at 12 midday.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Yes, Lunchtime Live with Graham Stewart, Lucy White, 12 o'clock here on BBC Radio Scotland. Do not go anywhere.
When their sexy dress stepping out so clean, body by a fisher, looking like something from a magazine, smelling so good, tantalizing and aroma so sweet, nothing left to do but freak, yeah. What you got to lose? Everybody's somebody's fool. A hot dog, baby, you look so good. I just wanna know what's under that hood. That sure is good. Baby, you look so fine. I just wanna make you mine. Don't worry about the Joneses. No, they don't pay your bills. Reach down, slide on, some of them bareback high. They look so good with jeans or skirts. Sexy, sexy, sexy. Flash them sexy eyes and make them flirt, yeah. When you walk and wiggle like that, oh girl, you sure got class. A hot dog, baby, you sure look good. I just wanna know what's under that hood. That sure is good. Baby, you look so doggone fine. I sure wish I could make you mine. Pretty eyes, a sexy body. When you go out to the club, you really know how to party. Wanna dance us all night long. I wonder who you gonna be with when it's time to go home. I see you got on that tight skirt. I don't see no print of no thongs. Girl, if I could get my hands on you, oh, it would be so raw. A hot dog, baby, you sure look good. So good, so good. I just wanna know what's under that hood. Baby, sure is good. Baby, sure is good. Baby, you look so doggone fine. So fine, so fine. Sure wish I could make you mine. Baby, you look so good. So good, yeah. So good. Yeah. Baby, you look so doggone fine. So fine. Just wanna make you mine. Oh yeah, I wanna love you, girl, all night. Yeah. So good. You sure was fine.
Psst, good morning, everyone. Thank you for being my company this morning. It's been lovely to be with you here on BBC Radio Scotland. We've still got half an hour left, so plenty of time to get into loads of issues this morning. And this one might be interesting to you because we know it is one of the many challenges of parenthood. To be honest, it could be one of the many challenges of just living and breathing in life, can't it? Sleep. Do you have an issue with sleep? Do your kids have an issue with sleep? As they grow older, it might become less of an issue. However, new figures suggest that sleeplessness among teens and young people is in fact on the rise. And experts have warned that we could be facing an insomnia epidemic among children. So this morning, let's find out a little bit more about what's behind this rise, how you can help your kids to form good sleeping habits early in life. Maybe we'll all learn a little thing as well. I would love to get some insight onto how I can sleep better. Here to discuss this morning, Jojo Fraser, Edinburgh blogger and mum of two, and Sarah Clark, child psychotherapist and mum of two as well. Good morning, Jojo. Good morning, Sarah.
Good morning.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Right, Jojo, let me come to you first. So you have two wee ones. Is this something that you recognise? Have you been finding it harder to get your kids to sleep, or are they good sleepers? Are they absolutely hopeless sleepers? What's going on?
Well, firstly, my daughter's like me. She'll say, Mum, why do we have to sleep? Life's too exciting. And I feel the same way. Like, she's a massive dreamer. Charlie is too, but he's quite chilled. He's a bit more laid back. Whereas Bonnie and I, you know, we believe, we dream big. A lot of our dreams have come true because we dream, you know, that song, A Million Dreams, you think of what the world could be. So first of all, if there's something exciting on the horizon, perhaps for Bonnie, it could just be something at school, like a trip, or perhaps a new friendship, and she's really excited about it because that person lights her up. It could just be that she's got stuff on her mind. Now we've not got to the dreaded exam stage yet, and I'm hoping by the time Bonnie's 10 now, so I'm hoping by the time that comes that they've changed the format, because I personally believe that exams are killing our teenagers. That anxiety. There is so many other ways to measure their I don't even want to say success, but to kind of guide them in terms of what they want to do with their life. Like, my son knows he's going to be an actor, and he knows he's going to be in a film that I've written, and he knows, and he said to me the other day, Mum, I still have to go to school because I don't want to do exams. And I said, well, we'll find out, darling. Let's just see how the next few years go. You're only 8, but he's already worrying about having to do exams. So I think that's a big factor. I think screens get blamed a lot, right?
Yeah.
They can stimulate us, but I actually think, my kids sleep really well, even if they've been on their screens a bit more than normal, because perhaps, I've been, chilling on the lilo out in the garden, neglecting them a bit in the paddling pool, or not, I'm joking. I do invite them to join me, but they're like, I just want some screen time, Mum. And I'm like, do you know what? If you want some screen time, go and enjoy yourself. Like, I used to play the Sega Mega Drive, and I slept well, and I probably clocked up many an hour on that screen. So I don't think we should be putting all the responsibility on the screens. I think the key issue is speak anxiety for things like exams, or perhaps that excitement. That's when you start to fall in love when you're a teenager. And I just remember lying in bed, listening to music, just thinking about boys. Like, is he the prince that's going to rescue me? That's perfectly natural. Hormones, perhaps they're thinking about, they've had sex education and things. They're thinking about that. Their body's changing. Perhaps there's some insecurity there. And perhaps they've just picked up kind of patterns from different people. Someone could make one comment that could stick, perhaps about weight or about their skin or about their hair. And the world can be so cruel. So it's trying to focus on all the good. So I'm constantly saying to my kids, you're both so gorgeous, you're both so clever, you're both so lovely, you both work so hard, and trying to flood their mind with nice thoughts so that when they are lying in bed, they go, actually, I can sleep tonight because I'm not what my mind's telling me. I'm not useless. I'm not rubbish. I've got potential, and not shutting their dreams down. Like, someone shut my dream down of being an actor when I was 16, and I was going to drama school, and everyone knew I was going to drama school, and they knew I was going to go and act in films. But this teacher was like, Jojo, it's far too competitive. Don't do it. So I played it safe, right? And that perhaps gave me some sleepless nights. So I think letting our kids be heard and not pushing our thoughts onto them. What do we want them to do? It's not about us. I don't own my kids. They are their own people. So I want them to find their path. And I know I saw Charlie's was acting. I saw that early on because he's very like me. Bonnie, we've got a few things we're thinking about there, but she's just going to figure that out. But I think that's at the heart of it, really.
So basically, Jojo, we should probably try and let children be children for as long as possible, because there is a tendency nowadays, isn't there, for people to grow up a little bit quicker than they maybe would have a couple of years ago. A lot of that is to do with what they see on television and screens. And when we're talking about slightly older children than perhaps your children, Jojo, those screen time questions probably come in a little bit more seriously, don't they? Because it's not just that they're on a screen, but it's what they're seeing on that screen on social media. And actually that could play into the idea of what you're saying, that people worry a lot more. There's a lot more anxiety because there's this false sense of who you should be now on the internet and on social media. And young people can worry about that, and that can stop them from sleeping well.
There's so much judgment on there too, but then there's people posting these selfies that I've seen them standing there in the restaurant half an hour trying to get the perfect selfie. I'm sorry, but put your phone away, love. I don't mind the odd selfie, right? My camera's rubbish. I always look pretty awful. But sorry, that's my inner critic. We'll just say goodbye there. But it's so much nonsense on there. And that's why, I was going to come off social completely, but then I realized that actually I was helping people by talking and keeping it real. We need more people. So I'm going to raise my kids to keep it real on there, or not be on there. It's their choice, but not having that. Because you see couples and they look so happy, and then they're divorced a year later or whatever. And you're like, but you were so happy. A picture shows nothing. So that is going to be a challenge for them. And it's something I'm going to really have their back with and do everything I can in my power to make sure that they're protected, their mind's protected, and all the sorts of things as well with porn and how damaging that is, because that's not what they're seeing. Apparently, I had a porn expert on my podcast years ago. She was saying it's not real life, the things they're seeing. So speaking to them about what a loving relationship is, and
that plays into everything that they're thinking about, lying there asleep, and it's running through their mind. Let's bring in Sarah then. This is a great opportunity to bring in Sarah, who's a child psychotherapist. Then, Sarah, what do you think is driving this rise in sleep issues for children?
Good morning, everybody. Well, what a lovely thing to be able to listen to Jojo, who sounds very much like a mother after my own heart, I have to say. And I think much of what Jojo said is absolutely right. I certainly don't think we can place all the blame on social media. Sleep's so important, and social media is a thing, but it's not the only thing. My two daughters are nearly 17 and 14, and I've been surprised that they receive emails from their teachers at ungodly times of night, which can cause them anxiety and panic about essay deadlines and things like that. So I think it's wrong to just poke at social media. I do think social media is a factor, in terms of things like anxiety. But what we also know is that teenagers in particular have a great need for social connection, and to try and take that away from them can be equally detrimental. So it's about teaching our children to have some balance, some moderation, some regulation, and all those sorts of things. And that really does start very young, when they're little, and we teach them about winding down at the end of the night. We build good sleep routines. We put in time to talk. And one of my frustrations is, of course, that your children can come home from school. How was your day? Grunt. Off they go to their rooms. And then just as I'm collapsing at the end of a long day, 10 o'clock, Mum, can I talk to you? And it's that, okay, gear yourself back up. And my permanent fear of cobbler's children going barefoot and being the psychotherapist who doesn't listen to her own children means that I have to put matchsticks in my eyes and listen to whatever the drama of the day is. But communication is so important. And on that note, I think it's really important that we notice that children do as we do, not do as we say. So it's far better to make comments along the lines of, oh, shall I have another cup of coffee? Actually, no, it's a bit close to bedtime, I won't. Is the best way, rather than saying, do not have a Costa on your way home from school, or saying, oh, I'm feeling quite tired, I might actually have an early night tonight, is far better than, you've been staying up too late, bedtime is now 8 o'clock for you. Because teenagers have very different sleep cycles to the ones that adults do, and asking a teenager to go to sleep at 8 is like asking an adult to go to sleep at 4. They're just not going to be able to do it. So there are so many. It's a really complex and nuanced issue that we've got on our hands here, but sleep certainly underpins physical and mental health, and it is a big problem at the moment.
Can we talk a little bit about diets of children? Energy drinks is what I'm thinking. I just hear the sigh there. We shan't name any specific energy drinks, but anyone who's got a child, probably late stage of primary school, early secondary school, is probably thinking, the amount of times I've been asked to go to a shop and try and find various different energy drinks for my child is ridiculous. Are they causing havoc with sleeping patterns, Sarah? Do they actually have an impact on children's sleep?
Yes, definitely. I sometimes used to say to parents of clients that I worked with, you need to halve their screen time, halve their sugar, and double their exercise. But caffeine, I've noticed my teenage daughters have developed a very expensive iced coffee habit out of nowhere.
Oh, really?
Meeting up with friends outside of school. So, a double espresso shot in some icy, vanilla-y, latte type, whatever they're drinking, is not going to help with sleep, let alone, the sugar of the syrup that's gone into it as well. It's all a nasty combination. But again, it's about educating children, rather than saying, I'm going to take away your pocket money because you've spent it all on these unhealthy things. It's far better to kind of pick up the bottle and look at it and go, wow, gosh, that's got as much sugar in it as something else, and do that out loud in front of them, open a discussion on it, because a lot of the time the children don't know. I've worked with teenagers who didn't know that there was caffeine in tea, for example, or caffeine in a certain brand of fizzy drink that comes in a red can, and don't know the effect that caffeine has in terms of stimulating the brain, and in the same way the blue light that's emitted from their screens. So it's as much about educating them compassionately, kindly, engaging them in a conversation about these kind of things, as it is about lecturing them and switching things off and taking things away.
Ladies, thank you so much for being here this morning. It's been fascinating talking to you both, Jojo Fraser and Sarah Clark. Many thanks for that. I wonder if you've got any slight issues with trying to get your kids into bed, or maybe your issues are more trying to get them out of bed in the morning. Either way, it can be a little bit tricky, can't it? You are listening to Mornings with Laura McGee. It's 11:44.
There was a time in America when sports were based on honor.
Oh, I love you. Wait a minute, am I getting jerked again?
Decency.
Yeah, I think you will. You ain't my daddy, are you?
And going the distance.
You got to be in some kind of shape. Well, I'm in shape. I'm round.
That time is over.
You're a criminal. What have you to say? Kumbaya.
It's ruining a great song. The Great White Hype.
$2 on
on the clean cut fight boy.
Rated R. The Hype is on at theaters Friday.
sushi restaurant. I can't believe that only got to number 3. I would have thought it would have got much higher. Regardless, that was Harry Styles. Good morning to you all. Mornings with Laura McGee, BBC Radio Scotland. Thank you for being with us. Just over 10 minutes left of the programme, but we can't go through a Monday without talking all things tech. I'm happy to say our technology expert, Carrie Marshall, is with me this morning. Good morning, Carrie. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm very well. Have you been enjoying the sunshine, Carrie?
I have been hiding from the sunshine.
No.
I'm very Peely Wiley, so I just basically burst into flames if I go outside. So just
Oh, but it must have been difficult to avoid it. It's been so warm.
It's been beautiful. I have a black greyhound and she doesn't want to go out either. So the two of us are just sitting here.
Two of you sitting
just
inside.
praying for winter to come back.
I'm sure there's a huge amount of people that are in the same boat as you, Carrie. Right, this morning we're going to talk a little bit about Pride and Pride products from all your tech favourites. But I think what is probably important, because there will be people that don't know what Pride is. So, Carrie, can you tell us a little bit about what Pride is, Pride Month is?
Yeah, Pride Month is a celebration of LGBT plus people, and it dates back to the late 1960s and the riots at Stonewall, where queer people were fighting back against, police harassment and general intolerance. So it's become a celebration and a reminder that the rights have been hard won and still have to be fought for. And it's also a way for big brands to market particularly to younger people. So this is the time of year that you're going to be seeing like rainbow striped Converse trainers, special edition Ben & Jerry's ice cream, Pride themed UGG boots. And of course, the tech companies get very much on board for this as well.
Yeah, so that is an important question. Why do the tech companies get so on board with it? Why are they so enthusiastic when it comes to celebrating Pride, making Pride products, making their symbols Pride colours for however long?
I think there's a number of motivations here. I think the most obvious one is money. There's lots of different estimates by how many of us there are, but you're looking probably about 10% of the population. So if you can market effectively to that, that's an awful lot of cash. It's also a way of attracting talent to your company by saying, we are a good company to work for. We are socially responsible. And you find that particularly in companies like Apple, who don't necessarily do like really, really high profile stuff once a year, but work with like quite a lot of, for example, LGBT plus charities throughout the year. And I think that's quite an important thing because that it doesn't then look like a cynical bit of PR.
Yes, cynical bit of PR. That is an interesting thought because some people will think that maybe at this part of the year, maybe their favourite companies don't tend to talk that much about Pride, and then all of a sudden they jump on the Pride bandwagon, maybe is what they would think. So, I mean, there must be quite a bit of a danger there sometimes with people thinking that it's just marketing. They're just trying to get as many people interested in their products as possible. They're not actually allies or actually that interested in Pride.
That's a really good point. And I think one of the things that we are very, very suspicious about is what we call rainbow capitalism, where people will just like wave a rainbow. And we're seeing quite a lot of that this month where there's quite a lot of backlash from like far right people online in particular. And companies that have come out waving the Pride flag have got a bit of crap on Twitter and have then gone, well, actually, we're not that interested in Pride after all. And from that point of view, it's like, well, just, don't try and be so cynical to us, because if you're a proper ally, you would stand up against this. And that's been quite saddening to see some fairly large brands walking back on their supposed support of quite a lot of people.
Oh, really? So people that have been quite critical of some of these brands, they've actually turned around and taken their stuff off the shelves?
Yeah, there are... There's an online thing that's happening primarily on Twitter where, for example, Bud Light sent a couple of personalised cans to the influencer Dylan Mulvaney, who's a trans woman. And there was just this massive, massive online outcry with all the right-wing press in America, online in particular, going, oh, this is absolutely terrible. And Bud Light basically then retracted the whole thing and then started doing ads that didn't say out loud, we're a very heterosexual beer company, but that's kind of what they meant. And that was like really, really disgusting to see.
Yeah, of course. Not nice at all. Right. Tell me a little bit about some of the brands that are doing things then, that are releasing tech, that are, I don't know, changing tech slightly to fit in with the Pride theme for the next wee while.
Yeah, there are quite a few. Disney's doing some really, really nice Pride-themed Star Wars merchandise, which is... it's a shame that Louise is off sick today because she loves this kind of stuff and can talk about it for hours. Microsoft is doing some nice stuff on Xbox. And again, they're getting very serious about this. So they're not just putting out like a rainbow-striped Xbox controller. They are actively supporting game developers to try and get more diverse stories told through independent video games. They're working with the American charity GLAAD to bring more LGBT plus stories, characters and experiences to Xbox. Skagen Designer Watches are bringing out special Pride support and things that will donate to charity. Harry's Razors are doing this as well. There is quite a lot of stuff going on. My favourite one is Apple, because they bring out these gorgeous Apple Watch bands every year.
Yes.
And a proportion of that goes to charities. But again, Apple puts its money where its mouth is. So last year they commissioned me to go and interview a bunch of trans game developers to talk about their games on Apple's website, which is one of the biggest websites in the world. So they're doing the publicity as well as just coining in the cash.
Yes. Just before I let you go, Carrie, are there any tips you've got for us to sort of tell the difference between the cynical marketing, I guess, the people that are actually doing it for real and the people that are maybe just doing it because they think that that's what they should do?
Yeah, this is something that we talk about before. You know, not necessarily in the context of pride, but you tend to find that your money is better spent on independent local businesses than any of the big brands.
Yeah.
So, you know, for example, if you want to go down to category as bookshops, and other bookshops are available, but if you go down there in the south side of Glasgow and spend your money there instead of like a rainbow T-shirt from a supermarket, you're doing much more good, and you're being much more supportive of the LGBT plus community. So, you know, and just be very, very cynical of what companies do the rest of the year, because if they're not actively supporting you, you know, for the other 11 months of the year, then they're just trying to get your cash.
Well, one thing I can do, Carrie, is be cynical. So that is welcoming to me. Thank you very much, Carrie. Lovely
You're
to speak
welcome.
to you.
Thank you.
That's our technology expert, Carrie Marshall. The time is 11:55.
Give me your number. Let me call you sometime. Stop my heart from bleeding and ease my trouble mind. You see my heart's in trouble and I'm in so much pain. I don't know what's the matter. I think I'm going insane. I went to see my doctor. My troubles he couldn't tell. Said, young man, you might get better, but you will never be well. You got a bad condition, so don't take no chance. You got a bad case of loneliness. You need a true romance. Now only love can help you, and it will pull you through. So try to find true love if it's the last thing you do. You're gonna need true love. You're gonna need true love. You're gonna need true love. You're gonna need a true love. Someone to stand by your side that won't run out and hide. And when the going gets tough, and when the road get rough, and when the burden get heavy, and your friends are few, and you can't find nobody just to stand by you, you're gonna need true love. You're gonna need true love. You're gonna need true love. Lord, true love. Let me hear the blues.
This morning, thank you so much for being my company today. I will be back at 9 a.m. tomorrow, fresh-faced and ready to go. I hope you will join me then. At 1:30, the afternoon shows with Janice Forsyth, actor, comedian, impressionist John Culshaw will be with Janice, telling her all about what it was like narrating Sir Tenny Pratchett's audiobook series Watch. Of course, at 4 o'clock, Drive Time with John Beattie, and all the tunes at 6 with Get It On and Brian Burnett. But first up, or next up on BBC Radio Scotland today, it's Lunchtime Live with Graham Stewart and Lucy White. Good afternoon, both of you.
Good afternoon. Thanks to you, Laura.